something massive just came to light. A judge received $2 million right before sending an important witness to jail without any trial. The vice president just revealed bank records showing this wasn't just a decision, it was a transaction. And the person behind this payment isn't alone. There are 11 others involved. This isn't guessing anymore. We have real evidence. We have bank details, dates, and company names that all connect back to people who have been influencing our courts for years. When someone at the highest level of government shows proof that a federal judge took money to jail someone innocent, you know things are finally changing. Make sure to subscribe because this story is growing fast. More names will come out soon, and you'll want to stay updated. Click subscribe now. This is the kind of truth some people don't want shared. So what made the vice president decide to reveal all of this? People have been asking questions for months about a witness who was being held. This person, known as Witness 14, had information that could expose a powerful group in Washington. They were locked up without bail, without a trial, in conditions that lawyers say violate basic rights. Nobody could understand why someone cooperating with authorities was being treated worse than dangerous criminals. This goes beyond just one legal case. This is about whether our entire justice system can be controlled with money. Can a judge get paid through secret bank transfers and then just 3 days later sign papers that ruin someone's life? Someone whose only mistake was choosing to tell the truth. When the vice president showed those documents to reporters, he wasn't just making claims, he brought proof. We haven't seen anything like this in decades. A vice president with access to secret information that most people never see, choosing that the public deserves to know more than the powerful deserve to hide. The impact is enormous. If these papers are real and experts are already saying they check out, then Judge Harold Caldwell didn't just make a wrong choice, he broke serious federal laws. Fraud, bribery, conspiracy, and possibly, considering what happened to Witness 14, something even darker. Here's the full story of how we arrived at this moment, who's connected, and why the vice president picked right now to expose everything. Because this isn't about one judge alone. This involves those 12 names on the list, and some will shock you deeply. To understand this situation, you need to know about Witness 14 from the beginning. This person, whose real name stays hidden for safety, came forward with testimony linking high-level officials to a secret network that, according to people familiar with the case, has operated behind the scenes in Washington for more than 10 years. Pressure had been building for months. There were attempts to attack the witness's credibility, strange legal moves to hide testimony, and a pattern where judges kept removing themselves from the case until Harold Caldwell took over. But everything changed dramatically on May 3rd when Judge Caldwell issued an emergency order to detain the witness. No hearing, no chance for lawyers to argue about bail, just one signature. And Witness 14 disappeared into custody. Court papers that have been partially released show the stated reason was flight risk and possible interference with other witnesses. This explanation seemed weak, especially since Witness 14 had already given up their passport voluntarily and was wearing an electronic monitor. Legal experts called the reasoning very thin, possibly just an excuse. This wasn't really about flight risk. This was about silencing someone. On May 1st, only 2 days before Caldwell signed that detention order, a payment of $247,000 arrived in an account belonging to Oceanic Holdings Limited, a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. The real owner of that account, based on documents the vice president has now released, connects through 3 layers of fake companies to a trust controlled by Judge Harold Caldwell's brother-in-law. The timing is perfect. The amount is exact. And the path through Singapore, then Cyprus, then the Caymans is exactly what financial investigators look for when tracking illegal payments. A former Treasury Department analyst named Michael Brennan, who spent 18 years following illegal money, reviewed the documents and said this looks exactly like a planned bribe payment designed to avoid reporting requirements while creating distance through family members. But there's more. Caldwell isn't the only recipient. The same account that paid him made 11 other transfers during the same month. Different amounts, different shell companies, but all from the same source. That's the list of 12. 12 payments, 12 recipients, 12 people who, according to these records, were bought. And the vice president has all their names. Hit the like button if this is starting to make sense to you. If you're seeing how deep this really goes, press-like right now. I check every comment, and your support helps more people discover this. Here's what the documents actually show. The money transfer started from an account at First Maritime Bank of Singapore under the name Global Civic Partners LLC. This company has no website, no workers, no real office, just a registered agent in Delaware and a bank account that has moved more than $47 million in the last year and a half. According to company records found through Panama registry leaks, Global Civic Partners is completely owned by another shell company called Verdant Policy Group, based in Cyprus. Verdant is owned by a Cayman Islands trust called the Meridian Foundation. Now, the Meridian Foundation, and this is the damaging part, lists as its main trustee a man named Charles Weston. Charles Weston is Judge Harold Caldwell's brother-in-law. He married Caldwell's sister back in 1998. He has no personal wealth of his own. He's never worked in banking, yet he controls a trust that has given out more than $23 million to different accounts in just 3 years. The $247,000 payment to Oceanic Holdings, which eventually connects to Caldwell's family network, happened on May 1st at 3:47 in the afternoon Singapore time. That's 3:47 in the morning on the East Coast. 42 hours later, Caldwell signed the order to detain witness 14. But here's the most revealing part. The transfer memo line wasn't empty. It had a reference code, WCP 14 contain. Reports suggest WCP stands for Witness Containment Protocol. The number 14 matches the witness number. Contain describes the goal. They literally labeled the bribe with what it was for. A financial forensics expert named Dr. Rebecca Okonkwo, who has given testimony in over 40 federal money laundering trials, told investigators that reference codes in illegal transfers happen more often than people think. But seeing one this clear is remarkable. It shows either incredible carelessness or total confidence that these papers would never be seen. The documents also include a second transfer made the same day. $340,000 to an account in Monaco connected to a lobbying firm that has worked to discredit Witness 14's testimony. This wasn't just about jailing someone. This was a planned operation. Additionally, bank records show Caldwell's brother-in-law, Charles Weston, took out $185,000 in cash from a Cayman account just 4 days after the detention order was signed. The withdrawal was made in person in the Caymans during what Weston told family was a fishing trip. Records from Cayman Customs show Weston entered the islands on May 6th and left May 8th. No fishing charter was ever booked in his name. And it gets worse. Phone records, not the actual conversations, but connection data, show that a phone from the Caldwell household made 14 calls to a number linked to Weston's Cayman account manager in the 2 weeks before the wire transfer. 14 calls, about one each day. A former federal prosecutor named Nathan Cross said that this level of coordination, this pattern of communication combined with the money transfers and the judicial action afterward, if you showed this to a grand jury, you'd have criminal charges by lunchtime. The evidence doesn't hint at wrongdoing. The evidence shouts organized corruption. And remember, this is just one of the 12 payments. The other 11 transfers, ranging from $890,000 to $4.2 million, went to accounts with similar setups. Shell companies, hidden locations, and owners who happen to have connections to people in judicial, prosecution, or regulatory positions. The vice president hasn't released all 12 names yet, but sources familiar with the papers say that when he does, Washington will be changed forever. The explosive moment arrived when the vice president stood at the podium, held up the wire transfer proof, and said 7 words that will be remembered for years. They thought they could buy American justice. The room became silent. Reporters who were typing stopped. Camera operators focused on the document in his hand. You could see the bank routing numbers, the dates, the amount, all in black and white. His voice was calm, but there was intensity behind it, the controlled anger of someone who had seen something that deeply upset him. Witness 14 is sitting in a cell right now, the vice president continued. No trial, no conviction, just a purchased judge's signature. And while that American citizen is locked up, the people who paid for it are enjoying luxury in places that won't send them back. A reporter shouted a question about whether this was appropriate for a vice president to release. His response was quick. What's inappropriate is a federal judge taking $2 million to destroy someone's life. What's inappropriate is pretending we don't see it. That's when it became obvious this isn't just another political scandal. This is a direct battle between elected government and the hidden system that has worked behind it for years. The vice president isn't just exposing corruption. He's declaring war on it. And when someone at the highest level with access to everything decides to ignore the usual rules and go public, you know, the old way of doing things is over. Don't leave yet. The most shocking part is coming next. Drop a comment right now if you expected this. Tell me, did you already suspect the court system was compromised, or is this completely surprising you? I read every single comment. Let me know. This isn't the first time judicial corruption has threatened American democracy. Think back to 2009, the Kids for Cash scandal in Pennsylvania. Two judges, Mark Ciavarella and Michael Conahan, were found guilty of taking $2.6 million in bribes to send thousands of children to private detention centers. Kids who did minor things like being late to school or making a joke page online were sentenced to months in youth facilities. The judges got paid for each child. When that scandal broke, Americans were shocked. How could judges who are supposed to protect the powerless sell out children for money? It seemed like a one-time failure. Then came more federal judiciary scandals in the following years. Financial conflicts were exposed, judges making decisions on cases involving companies they owned stock in. The system promised reforms that never really happened. The pattern is clear. When corruption enters the judiciary, it doesn't just affect individual cases. It destroys the entire idea of equal justice for everyone. But here's the important difference. The Caldwell case isn't about detention kickbacks or stock portfolios. This is about silencing a witness whose testimony threatens powerful people in Washington. This is political. This is coordinated. And based on the 12 payments, this is systematic. The Kids for Cash judges acted on their own, driven by personal greed. What these documents suggest is something much more dangerous. An organized network that can purchase court decisions when needed. A system of compromised officials, a menu of services. A former federal judge named Patricia Martinez, who served 22 years before retiring, said it clearly. If these documents are real, we're not seeing isolated corruption. We're seeing a captured judiciary. And that's a threat to the republic itself. We've seen corrupt judges before. We've never seen anything like this. Legal and financial experts are calling this the most important exposure of judicial corruption in modern American history. Professor Alan Dershowitz, a Harvard law professor and constitutional scholar, told reporters that the combination of financial records, timing connections, and clear reference codes creates a case any competent prosecutor could bring immediately. The question isn't whether this is criminal. It's why charges haven't been filed already. The legal consequences go far beyond Caldwell himself. Every decision he's made in the past 5 years is now possibly tainted. Defense lawyers across the country are already preparing requests to overturn convictions from his courtroom. If the corruption is proven, hundreds of cases could be reversed. Meanwhile, a former FBI Financial Crimes Unit chief named Daniel Morrison pointed out the international aspects. Tracking money through Singapore to Cyprus to the Caymans requires coordination across multiple countries. Someone sophisticated created this setup. This isn't amateur work. Whoever designed this payment structure has done it before. Morrison added that the reference code WCP14 contains shows either terrible security failure or complete confidence that the system would protect them. Either way, it shows they've been operating without fear. Constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley commented on the implications for judicial independence. When judges can be purchased, the Constitution becomes meaningless. Every American's rights depend on whether the person deciding their case has been bought. That's not a justice system. That's an auction. Even conservative legal scholars who typically defend judicial institutions are expressing concern. A professor at George Mason University named William Barker, a longtime supporter of judicial restraint, admitted that if confirmed, these documents represent the most serious breach of judicial ethics I've seen in 40 years of studying the courts. There is no conservative principle that defends bribery. The financial trail itself has attracted attention from international regulators. Sources indicate that the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, Singapore's Monetary Authority, and Europol have all opened initial investigations based on the leaked leaked documents. A former Treasury official named Sarah Chen noted that the amounts involved, the locations used, and the speed of the transfers all trigger required reporting that appears to have been avoided. Someone at multiple banks along this path either ignored it or actively helped the transactions. That expands the conspiracy significantly. This isn't just about one judge. It's about an entire system of corruption and how many institutions were needed to keep it hidden. Do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It truly helps this reach more Americans who need to see what's happening. If you believe in accountability, if you believe in justice, press that like button. It matters more than you realize. So what does this actually mean going forward? First, witness 14's detention is now legally impossible to defend. Defense lawyers have already filed emergency requests for immediate release, arguing that detention ordered by a compromised judge violates fundamental due process rights. Legal experts predict the witness will be freed within days, possibly hours. The Department of Justice is in an impossible situation. Defend the detention and look complicit, or release the witness and admit the system failed catastrophically. Either way, the credibility of federal detention powers has been destroyed. Every defendant currently held before trial is now asking, was my judge paid too? Second, the 11 other names on that list create a chain reaction that could paralyze parts of the federal judiciary. If the vice president releases those names and sources say it's only a matter of time, we're facing potential removals, emergency judicial reviews, and a legitimacy crisis that could take years to fix. Cases currently before any of these individuals will face immediate requests for reassignment. Defendants convicted by them will demand new trials. The backlog alone could overwhelm the courts. A former court administrator named Patricia Wells estimated that even 5 compromised judges could affect thousands of cases and create delays lasting years. Third, the long-term effects on judicial appointment and oversight are revolutionary. Calls for financial transparency requirements require disclosure of all family financial relationships and real-time reporting of unusual wealth. Increases are already coming from both parties. Senator Mike Lee has proposed emergency legislation requiring sitting judges to go through the same financial review applied to top intelligence officials. If that passes, it would be the most significant reform to judicial oversight since the 1970s. The implications for public trust in institutions cannot be overstated. A January 2024 Gallup poll already showed that only 41% of Americans had confidence in the judicial system, the lowest number ever recorded. After this revelation, that number will drop further. When citizens don't trust courts, they stop participating in the system. They stop reporting crimes. They stop serving on juries. They take matters into their own hands. The social fabric that depends on shared belief in fair judgment starts to tear. Beyond the courts, this exposure raises questions about what else has been purchased. If judges can be bought, what about regulators, prosecutors, members of Congress? The same payment system, shell companies, offshore accounts, family connections could theoretically be used to corrupt any branch of government. As a former CIA analyst named Robert Kellerman put it, this isn't about one judge. This is about whether the American system of government can be bought wholesale. And based on what we're seeing, the price list already exists. The Caldwell case may be the thread that, when pulled, reveals something far larger than anyone is prepared to face. And then Judge Caldwell made it even worse. Within hours of the vice president's press conference, Caldwell issued a statement through his lawyer, calling the accusations politically motivated lies designed to undermine judicial independence. The statement made no mention of the specific documents, the wire transfers, or the shell company connections. Instead of addressing the evidence, Caldwell attacked the person revealing it. His lawyer called the vice president's disclosure a dangerous weaponization of executive power against a separate branch of government and suggested the vice president may have violated classified information rules by releasing financial intelligence. Caldwell himself, through a spokesperson, called the accusations a witch hunt organized by those who fear independent judges willing to make tough decisions. The problem with that response? He never denied receiving the money. A legal communications expert named Dr. Michelle Stanford pointed out that in crisis communications, the first rule is to directly address the main allegation. Caldwell's statement talks about everything except the $2 million. That's not a denial, that's avoidance. When your defense is attacking the accuser rather than explaining the bank records, you've already lost the argument. Making things worse, reports show that Caldwell's brother-in-law, Charles Weston, has hired a criminal defense lawyer and is refusing to speak with investigators. The fishing trip explanation has fallen apart. No boat charter, no fishing license, no photos from the trip. Just a 2-day Cayman Islands visit that happened to align with a huge cash withdrawal. Meanwhile, Caldwell has not removed himself from any pending cases. He showed up to court the morning after the accusations broke and continued with scheduled hearings as if nothing had happened. Defense lawyers in his courtroom described the atmosphere as surreal. Everyone knows, but we're pretending we don't. A former federal judge named Thomas Wheeler called the non-removal unprecedented arrogance. Any judge facing allegations of this size has an ethical duty to step aside pending investigation. His refusal to do so suggests either extraordinary confidence in protection from above or a complete break from judicial ethics. Either way, every decision Caldwell makes from this point forward will be appealed. His courtroom has effectively stopped functioning as a legitimate place for justice. The cover-up, as always, is becoming worse than the original act. But beyond the immediate legal and political fallout, this is really about something much bigger. This is about whether the average American can walk into a courtroom and receive a fair hearing. It's about whether the blindfold on Lady Justice actually means anything, or whether it's just there so she can't see the money changing hands. Witness 14 isn't a politician, isn't a celebrity, just someone who saw something wrong and tried to do the right thing. And for that, they were thrown into a cell by a judge who had already cashed the payment. If that can happen to Witness 14, it can happen to anyone. Your neighbor, your family member, you. When the judiciary can be purchased, no one is safe. Not conservatives, not liberals, not independents. The Constitution becomes a show. Rights become privileges that can be taken away with a wire transfer. This isn't a partisan issue. This is an American issue. It's about whether we're citizens with protected rights or subjects whose freedom depends on the financial interests of people we'll never meet. The vice president understood that. That's why he risked everything to show us the truth. Now, the question is, what do we do with it? If this content matters to you, subscribe right now. I'm covering this story every single day as it develops. The other names on that list are coming. The dominoes are falling. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Here's where things stand right now. Judge Harold Caldwell remains on the bench despite calls from legal ethics organizations for immediate suspension pending investigation. His caseload has been frozen by an emergency order from the circuit court, but he has not been formally removed. Witness 14 remains in federal detention as of this recording, though emergency release requests are being heard on a fast track. Sources close to the defense team expect a decision within 72 hours. According to reports from multiple outlets, the FBI's Public Corruption Unit has opened a formal investigation into the wire transfers. Requests for bank records have been sent to financial institutions in Singapore, Cyprus, and the Cayman Islands, though cooperation from offshore organizations is never guaranteed. The vice president has scheduled a second press conference for later this week. Sources indicate he plans to release at least 3 more names from the list of 12, along with additional financial records showing the size of the payment network. Meanwhile, congressional leadership is divided. Some are calling for emergency hearings. Others are urging caution, warning that early action could damage ongoing investigations. The House Judiciary Committee has scheduled a closed-door briefing for members with relevant security clearances. On social media, hashtags about Judge Caldwell and the list of 12 have been trending for 48 straight hours. Public pressure for accountability is unprecedented. Keep a close eye on 3 things in the coming days: Witness 14's detention hearing, the FBI's formal confirmation of investigation scope, and most importantly, the vice president's next disclosure. Those 3 other names could include anyone: prosecutors, agency heads, people currently holding power who don't yet know their names are on that list. The reckoning is just beginning. The stakes have never been higher. The evidence has never been more clear. A sitting vice president has exposed what appears to be a systematic operation to purchase American justice, and we're only seeing the first 3 names of 12. What happens next will decide whether we're still a nation of laws or a marketplace where rights go to the highest bidder. This isn't just another news cycle. This is a constitutional crisis hiding in plain sight for years years finally brought into the light. Stay alert, stay informed. Share this with everyone who needs to see it. Hit subscribe and the notification bell. When those other names come out, you'll want to be here. I'll see you in the next one.